Is the Swamp Fox Raider a red dot sight? How is it different to other red dots? And what's so special about the caps? Hi, I'm Tina from Target Tamers, and today I'm reviewing the Swamp Fox Raider Micro Prism. To answer these questions and more throughout my review, as you can see, it's covered like from front to back in dust. I literally just dropped it into the dirt. So to start with, the Raider is a 1x prism red dot with a 20mm objective lens. It has 10 illumination settings, buttons for the illumination control. It has fixed parallax at 100 yards, 1 minute adjustments. It has a T2 footprint. It weighs about 8 ounces and it's around 2.5 by 2 by 2.3 inches in size. So as a micro prism red dot sight, it's about as big as any of my other red dots that I have. And other than the diopter on this end, you actually wouldn't be able to tell that it's any different to any other enclosed reflex red dot sight just by looking at it. So red dot sights is sort of a catch-all term for both reflex red dots and prism red dots, although sometimes holographic sights gets lumped in there too. I dropped it again. Anyways, in a reflex red dot sight, you're basically seeing a projected reticle that's reflected back to your eye from an angled objective lens. Now that reticle is nearly always a dot, and even though you'll always need a battery to operate it, these red dot sights these days can run for like thousands of hours before you ever need to replace it. Now the Raider is not a reflex sight, but it is a prism sight. So as the name implies, there is a reflective prism inside this tube. Now how it differs to a reflex sight is that the Raider has a glass etched reticle, and it's not a dot. It's compatible for those with astigmatism. It has an adjustable eyepiece, the diopter, and you can run this with illumination and even without a battery at all. Now the Raider has an actual reticle, not just a 1, 2, or 4 minute or whatever size dot. It is glass etched, so that's good news for those with astigmatism. It tends to make that reticle very sharp and clear with minimal to no distortion for astigmatic eyes. Now if you need some sort of dioptric correction, say if you're near farsighted, the adjustable eyepiece will cater to that, and that's something that reflex sights just do not have. Now if you do prefer a dot reticle, then the Raider is also available in the 6-minute dot version as well, instead of the BRC. Now the BRC is the bullet rise compensation reticle, and it has a 2-minute chevron, and it's very sharp and clear, and I 0 to 50 yards with that. And with that 0, the bottom of the chevron and the subsequent 6-minute dots serve as the 15, 10, and 5-yard holds, and I did confirm those at the range. And one of the best features of the BRC reticle, in my opinion, is that it's massive. That ring is 102 minutes wide, and those dots are 6 minutes in size. So for me, acquiring that reticle, as soon as you put rifle to shoulder, it was right there. There were no issues with trying to find it. It was ready to go. And yet that chevron, being only 2 minutes in size, allows for some very precise aiming, especially when you're going a little bit to distance with it. So if you're someone who you can't always see dots, or BDC reticles are just too small in red dot sights and you just end up hunting for those dots all the time, you're not going to have any of those issues with the Swamp Fox Raider in the BRC. Okay, so the Raider has illumination, and it does depend on a battery to provide that illumination. So if that battery dies on you or fails for some reason, you will not lose your primary aiming system. You will not lose your reticle. It is glass etched, so it's not going anywhere. It just appears black. So technically you can use a Raider without ever putting a battery in it, because you'll still have a black reticle. It just doesn't light up in either red or green. So this little fella that I tested has green illumination, but there is a red illuminated version as well. And the battery runtime is rated to be like 35,000 hours. That's like 4 years on a single CR2032 battery. That's a really good runtime for a prism sight, and I think a lot of that has to do with the Swamp Fox's shake and wake feature. It's their motion sensor tech, just like Holosun's Shake Awake, Sig Sauer's Motac, Primary Arms Auto Live. You get the point. So after about 4 minutes of non-movement, I counted like 3 minutes and 53 seconds, it will go into standby mode. Give it a little nudge, you know, when it detects movement, it will kick right back on. I'm going to pause right here to take a second to encourage you to like and subscribe if you're finding my review helpful or informative. Thanks for the support. I didn't need the illumination all the time, even though I think that max illumination is suitably daylight bright. Like any other red dot, right? It's going to struggle in those nuclear bright conditions, like on highly reflective surfaces. I really liked the intensity differences between each setting, and it's definitely appropriate for low light conditions. I didn't see any starbursting or washout of the field of view with the dim settings. Now, settings 1 and 2 are night vision compatible, and I couldn't detect setting 1 with the naked eye, and with setting 2, it was exceptionally difficult to barely make out the illumination with the naked eye. Either way, I did test out setting 1 and setting 2 with Gen 1 night vision, and sure enough, the reticle is there, visible and ready to use. I also tested the radar with thermal vision, and I threw the AGM ASP Micro on the rail with the radar, and I shot off several rounds with this setup, and just so much fun. So prism sights usually don't get paired with magnifiers because they usually have low and fixed magnification of their own. Well, the Swamp Fox Radar is a non-magnifying prism sight, so I didn't see any issues in throwing the 6 Sauer Juliet 3 micro magnifier on the rail as well. And I was really pleased that I didn't have any eye relief issues when setting up both optics together. Now, the Swamp Fox Radar does come at an optical height with the pre-installed mount of 1.6 inches. The Juliet 3 is at a 1.41 inch height out of the box, so I went ahead and put on the appropriate spacer to raise it to that 1.6 inch height to match the radar. And it was a perfect match. It was great. They were great on the rail together. I had that 3 times magnification. It was just awesome, especially good for better target identification, right? Or those longer shots, I'd say like beyond like 50, 75 yards. I like the mounts. I've always liked skeletonized mounts. You could say that it shaves a bit of weight, but in this case, I seriously doubt it. You've got 2 huge cross bolts with T25 heads. I mean, this thing is solid and robust. It has lasted to date 6 months worth of field testing and constant mounting and dismounting. Now, for the sake of it, I did go ahead and put a quick detach mount on there, and it was awesome. A lot of folks are going to love that T2 footprint because it's compatible. The radar is compatible with a lot of aftermarket mounts that you could put on there if you wanted to. So I'm completely fascinated by the bikini cap design, and I think I'm over enthusiastic about it because I went a long time. I don't even want to admit how long, but a long time of my field testing process with the caps just sitting in my rifle case. I had taken them off because that's what you do with rubber bikini caps, right? When you're using the red dot sight is you take them off, except these ones don't. So the front cap snaps off and snaps onto the battery compartment cap. Then the rear cap comes off and snaps onto that front cap. It's like brilliant. What you have here is this stacking tower of caps right here. It's brilliant. And I love that you're not going to lose the caps because it's tethered to the battery compartment. I think this is genius because I lose caps all the time. And this way you don't have to take them off. Brilliant. What do I like about the Swamp Fox Radar? Well, let's start with eye relief. Even though it's stated at 3.5 inches, it's technically a non-magnifying prism sight. So I could put this anywhere on the upper receiver and use it just fine. I mean, I used it with night vision, thermal, and it paired excellently with 3 times the magnifier without any eye relief issues. So that speaks for itself. I really like the massive BRC reticle. It's effective, highly visible, and you can use it without illumination. And for those with astigmatism, it's glass etched, so it should be a good alternative to a reflex red dot sight. Now, I'm farsighted, so having a diopter is important to me. And I wasn't crazy about the lack of knurling on the diopter. It was hard for me to grip and get it out from its factory set position, which is all the way in. Now, what I am crazy about is the stackable bikini lens caps that you've got here.
And snaps onto that front cap.
I'm not going to be losing those anytime soon. Now, I think it's clear why I like the Raider. I mean, it's a great prism sight, but it's also just a great red dot sight, period. It's high on my recommendation list, not just as a prism sight, but as a red dot sight in its own right. So the in-depth written review will be in a link down below. Thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and get outside.